was a web-based app. This was based on the app called Typing Therapy that had been designed by one of Jenny and Grace's colleagues, Ben. So we kind of changed it a little bit and decided on a web-based app rather than something you could purchase from the Apple Store or the Google Store. This allowed something to be longevity without needing the same level of regulation. It also is designed to be optimized for iPad, as many of Aphasia's solutions already rest on using iPads, as well as gave us the best chance to implement our errorless technology. So with this solution, we began the cycle of building, measuring, and learning. So as you can see, we worked very hard to test multiple different wireframes and different looks for our app. And at each stage, after each version, we would measure and talk to people with aphasia and talk to speech pathologists. By talking to our end users, we were able to improve our product, and we were able to understand more about what we wanted to achieve. I think this was the most important phase to implement people with aphasia, and we made sure we spoke to people with a variety of different severities, including people who were non-verbal to people who were beginning to regain a lot of their language. What we ended up with is an app that is aphasia friendly, and to achieve this we use big text and lots of icons. This is something you might have noticed throughout our presentation to ensure that people with aphasia could have greatest access for technology that is really built for them. So moving on to where we are currently. Our initial aim to make the technology errorless has been achieved. We are looking forward to having this errorless technology and making it accessible to everyone. It is individualized. Within the app, you're able to add your own word lists, and that can be whatever words people desire. Speaking to people with aphasia, this is likely their partner's names, children's names, friends, family, and eventually they hope to use words that are specific to their workplace. We spoke to many engineers who wanted to add engineering words that maybe aren't in the classical apps. Finally, we added another aim, and so this was longevity. So we wanted to keep our app free and accessible to people with aphasia, going along with that initial idea of how do we make it accessible to everyone, particularly when we're looking at people who may have less access to their income due to their condition. We have been extremely fortunate in being able to receive HIS Phase 2 funding from MYMI and looking forward to use that to get our app onto the internet and be able to reach as many people as possible. We're hoping to build up our user base to help the app get future funding and make it sustainable in the long term. So this is where Project Quody is now. Over this whole project, we have learned a lot about design, about building and teamwork. And a huge thank you to my other project companions, which is Tim and Raj, who's joined the team recently, as well as to Jenny and Grace and all the people with aphasia who gave us their time and energy to kind of help us build the best tool possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation, Eliza. I don't think that there's any questions right now, but if anyone would like to know more about Project Quody and what they're doing, feel free to send a message in the chat, send a message to Eliza, and I'm sure that she'll be sticking around as well, so you can have a chat with her on the social lounge once the session is finished. So thank you so much for that, Eliza. So our next presentation will be a panel discussion with Miriam, Santiago, and Kenneth from Toucan Medical, which was previously one of our project's teams in MYMI but has since graduated. And this panel discussion will be moderated by our project's director at MYMI, Laura. So I will pass on to you guys, and you guys can get started whenever you're ready.
Hello everyone, welcome to this panel session. So basically how this is going to run is I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to go through that I've got set. If you have any more questions you want asked, whack them in the questions tab and we'll work it into the discussion here. So first of all, everyone welcome, especially you guys from Toucan. It's so exciting to see you guys again. We'll start with just going around all of you guys, get you guys to introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about your university, and maybe a fun fact about what you're doing now. Do you want to start, Sandy?
Oh, sure, thanks. I actually recently graduated with Bachelor's of Biomedical Science and Materials Engineering from Monash, so really fresh out of uni. And yeah, I've just gone directly into the startups, and we're working on them for about a year now. I always hate fun fact questions. Fun fact: I've never had a blood nose.
Good to know. Yeah, Mariam.
All right, nice to meet you guys. I'm Mariam. I work currently as a junior doctor at Monash Health, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Toucan. Next year I'll only be the CEO and co-founder of Toucan because I'm leaving medicine to focus on this for a while. Fun fact. My cat has officially lost 500 grams and is therefore now classified as of a healthy weight, no longer obese.
Nice. Mine's still obese, so don't worry. We know how that feels. Kenneth.
Oh, I can't hear you, Kenneth.
Still can't hear.
Kenneth, what's up? We can't quite hear you yet.
Tech issues.
We're going to try and have him refresh it and come back again. We'll see if that works.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, we will be implementing a Zoom call and putting him up through Layer again.
Hello, is this on?
Hello, yeah, nice to
okay.
meet you.
Sorry about that. So my name is Kenneth. I am the CTO and co-founder for Toucan, and I am finishing off my studies in mechanical engineering and industrial design. I guess a fun fact is I served in the Singapore Army before coming here for university, and I was like a combat medic in there. Yeah, so that's also how it ties in with Toucan.
That's awesome. So just to start you guys off, while I get my camera fixed, classic tech issues. We want to start this panel by talking about how you got to where you are. So talking about how the idea was first created, who thought of it, and where it started from. How did you find that need?
I'll be honest here. I suck at cannulating. So what a cannula is it's like a tiny little drip that goes into the vein and allows doctors to give patients blood, fluids, medication, etc. And as a medical student, I had to learn how to do it in my first clinical year, and I was just horrible. I was shocking. And so that's when I started to, I guess it just goes to show the kind of thinking that happens here, because instead of choosing to get better, I decided that perhaps the design is what needs to get better, not me. And from that point onward, I made a rough patch of a solution, but it's nowhere near what we have currently. And then I came up to Darren and Santiago, insisted I need a team. And then from there, actually, that's when Toucan really began, I think, because even though I identified that need, what our idea is now is like, it's so tied to what Santi, Kenneth, and I have been working on together. Like, you can't really say one of us thought of the idea or did one particular aspect of it, because it's such a outpouring of like 3 different perspectives. I mean, we've got Santi's materials engineering as well as biomedical sciences perspective. Then we've got Kenneth, who's like a 3-man team. I mean, he's got industrial design, mechanical engineering, and he's an army medic. That's just insane. And then there's me with I'm a doctor. And so really the idea is an idea in process, and we're working on it together, I would say.
Yep.
It's a really cool thing to, I suppose, go through. I mean, obviously, we've known each other for a little while now, seeing you guys go through projects. So in terms of, you mentioned briefly how everyone's roles are really intertwined. For everyone else, what are the main steps that each one of you has taken to get the product to where it is now? Just to give people an idea of, I suppose, the steps and the different parts that are required.
Yeah. That's that's interesting. I think for us, like, we've really been reflecting back as to how it started, how we've progressed, what we've done well, what we haven't done so well. And in that, we've seen that, all of us have grown immensely in different areas. I think there's a lot of, self-teaching. There's a lot of things that, at least for me, yes, like a biomedical and engineering degree is useful in terms of understanding the basics of, what a clinical trial may look like, or, what kind of safety and efficacy means and how you need to prove that. But there's also so many aspects that come into bringing something to market that you just don't really come across at a university level. We've been fortunate to, be a part of the MedTech Accelerator, which, that's helped a lot in terms of understanding those different aspects. But yeah, I think, for me personally, understanding legal aspects and knowing, what the hell IP is and what that is, and, how to give shares in the company, that's been a mystery experience, and it's been mistakes along the way, but, nothing that can't be fixed.
Yeah, I guess, adding on to what Sandy was saying, a lot of things that like where we've got to right now, there was a lot of it was through like a lot of help from other people as well, and a lot of things that I assumed, like from an industrial design background, what we were taught was just like, okay, you just need to identify the problem, think of a solution, make it look pretty, kind of thing. That's the gist of it. But then, like, going through all these past few months, learning about regulatory strategies, how to get there, what are the different kind of hoops you need to jump through to get there, and there's so much. There's quite a lot in there to do, actually, and that's why we're also very thankful, being like mentored and being guided through a lot of like these like webinar and courses from like the accelerator program, or even through like some of the resources shared through like MYMI's project teams, like the using like biodesign has been very, very helpful in getting us through all these things. Yeah.
That's good. So we do have a question that's just come in. So I'm going to work this into our next one. So you guys are obviously doing quite a bit with your lives, finishing off your studies or just finished them, working, among a bunch of other things, I'm sure. What sort of strategies do you use to manage it all, and how do you manage that time? Is it a time of year that's making it difficult, or going back to your reason for taking that plunge, Mariam, very brave. Where do you all sit with those?
I think we always knew that this year was going to be a tough year, because, Santi and Kenneth were graduating, and then I was finishing off internships. I could have like full registration. And so we always accounted for it. But actually what my day looks like in terms of managing is that I'll describe what happened was it Tuesday? I lost all concept of time. But my last shift around was that it was a night shift, and I'd gotten up from there, drunk a cup of coffee, worked for 6 hours straight on this, and then fell asleep, and then woke up again to reassess where I was at life. And then this morning I was looking through what I wrote, and it just looked so awfully drug-addled. And then going from there to fix it up. So it's one of those things where I think we all knew that we'd be pushing through this year, because all three of us are absolutely dedicated to this. And if you look at what Santi and Kenneth are doing, it's the exact same story for them. Like Kenneth has his exams coming up in November as well, and he's got he'll tell you all about his projects, especially over the next 2 weeks, what's due, and it'll be it's quite impressive, really. And I think it's always a journey, and I know that it's not sustainable to do that in the long term. And that's what's really changed, I guess, our way of approaching it, in that eventually you do have to make that decision of, are you 100% with the job or 100% with the startup? And it's only for a couple of years that you'd have to make that, I think, decision, because after that, we do see that within the future, a lot of the work that we're doing currently will not be done by us anymore. It'll be too specialized and too advanced, things like running clinical trials or writing down reimbursement codes, etc. So we know that it's more of a gap year approach, really. Even though people say you shouldn't start a startup in a gap year, but it's more of you should take a gap year because of your startup.
Yeah, I think starting on front, it's very much a balancing act, and I mean, whether it be work, uni, or anything else happening on the side. I think something that we've gotten quite well at is just being able to meet regularly, knowing what it is that we're working on a week or fortnightly basis. It really helps keeping each other accountable, knowing that if there are deadlines outside of the company that need to be hit, that we hit them, and then if there's any issues or we need to brainstorm about an idea or trouble that we're having, we can do that together. So I think that's been immensely helpful, but it's also being aware and keeping each other in touch as to what may be happening outside of the project or the company, and what's on whether it be exams, work, whatever it may be, just so that we know it's okay, one of the team members is on full capacity, how can we reshift things around for a week or two so we make sure that we can still progress as we go along. So it's very much a balancing act and just keeping lines of communication open, really.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
All good. Thank you for that question, Calvin. So in terms of what you guys are doing now, do you have specific roles that you guys are taking at the moment in terms of researching different parts or different processes?
Who wants to start?
Yeah, well, I can start, I guess. So I guess we sort of tried to allocate the roles based on our kind of expertise kind of thing, and play our strengths. But ultimately, there's still
I think one of the we realized is
So yeah, sorry. So I was saying, so what we did was to really try and allocate the things that we know we do, and the things that we don't know, we just try and help each other out as well. So for myself, as the technical expert kind of thing, I've been working on the design of it, but at the same time, I recognize I mainly work on this, but if I do need help, I'll ask for a emergency meeting or something with the other two, and then we can share our inputs and help each other out. And then in terms of other things that we can help each other about would be things when Santi's working on regs and reimbursement and whatnot, that he'll tell you more about the whole list of things he does. We help where we can, so I try and help where I can as well.
I mean, in terms of breaking down tasks and who's working on what, it's always been a learning process, and trying different things, see what's working, see what isn't. We've also been able to talk to other co-founders and they're working in their own startups in MedTech, and also receive feedback from them. But I think we've gone through a model of kind of selecting which areas of focus each of us have. And then, like Kenneth said, if there's anything that is out of our scope or we're struggling with, we get feedback on, and then ask for help where required. For me personally, I look out after all the IP stuff. So whether it be looking through current, previous patents, and understanding how our technology sits within that, just to make sure that we are somewhat covered on the commercialization point of view, and we'll be able to get to market and mitigating the risks as they come along, interacting with the lawyers. Also looking at their reimbursement pathway, so understanding how is it that this technology would be getting paid once it gets to market in the different places that we'd like to get them to market with, because reimbursement and regs is a bit like each country has their own way of doing it, and their own code, so it's very on a country to country basis. So understanding that process and understanding ultimately what is that the hospital and the clinicians want and how that fits with actually paying for a solution. So I think those are my two main roles, and then I work in conjunction with Mariam on the regs and clinical strategy in terms of understanding what evidence do we have at the moment, and what evidence will we need to generate as we go along to make sure that there's regulatory approval for the device.
Easy. I might just double check on Mariam. Are you still around?
Yeah, I'm just keeping silent because my internet is tenacious at best.
Easy. Did you want to have? Did you have anything more to add to the roles discussion at the moment?
Yeah, I think a lot of people really think that because when we first stepped into our roles, we were like, whoa, none of us are qualified for the roles that we're taking on. And I think this was like a thought that came through everyone's mind. And I was like, I was horrible at statistics. How do I read a study again? And there I was just like vetting out studies, and there was like Santi trawling through reimbursement, and then there was Kenneth just figuring out like what's needed for like alpha prototypes, beta prototypes, and plotting out all these things that I hadn't even considered. But one of the things that people really underestimate about these roles is that you're never, as a startup, supposed to know it all. And that's probably one of our strengths, right? Because you get so much guidance if you know like where to look, that really you've always got somebody to reach out to. And if you don't, you start making connections by reaching out anyway. And those connections are more than happy to refer you onto somebody who does know the answer. So we'll often have like I think at least 1 to maybe 2 days of the week are just meetings trying to figure out what the best plan or approach is for like certain questions that we have in our allocated roles. And we chose the roles more based on, I think, what each of us had to gain from it as well, and also a little bit playing from the strengths of it as well. So if you are considering this pathway, I guess I'd suggest like go for the thing that you reckon will be most insightful in terms of your career in the future.
Yep.
Nice. So we have a couple of questions that have just come through about this sort of experience. So the first one is from Rachel, asking, can you tell us a bit more about your experience in the actuator? What the time commitment is, the intensity of the program, and how you balance it with everything.
Yeah,
Santi.
So I mean, the MedTech actuator has been amazing. I mean, we've been in touch with them, whether it be through MYMI or whether it be to Toucan, since last year. So they're very much good friends of ours. So I mean, the way the program works is that it's a 15-month intensive program where the first 6 months they take you through sprints. So those have been involved in projects, you kind of be familiar with what the sprint system is. But basically, each month they give you kind of intensive workshops around all like different aspects of the business. So 1 month we've focused on commercialization, other months we've focused on getting to market, so anything that's reimbursement, regs, and then also like market strategy, communications. So that's basically how it works. So it's usually the first week of the month that's quite intensive, where we're getting workshops from people from literally all over the world. So we've had speakers from Europe, the United States, obviously here, Singapore as well. So it's really giving you all the insights and tips and tricks into what you need to do at different stages and what you need to consider along the way to de-risk your company, and also understanding, investment, how investment works, who are strategic investors, who should partner up with as you go along to progress your technology and your team. So I mean, they've really provided a lot of good insights and like considerations that we need to think as we go through. So I mean, that's the one intensive week at the start of the month, and then after that, basically we try to implement those learnings into the company and into our own strategy. And then there's a couple of documents that we need to submit as part of the program to ensure that we're eligible for investment going forward and that we're de-risking the company as we go along. So I think that's a bit of an insight. And between the three of us, we work around it in terms of who is able to attend to the workshops, and then if someone isn't, just making sure that we're filling each other in and sharing relevant information where required.
Nice. This is another sort of follow-up question about the actuator from Matt. So is the MedTech Accelerators Accelerator program fully funding the startup at the moment, or do you guys have other stakeholders that you can talk about?
Yeah. So a lot of the funding that we have received had come from the actuator. So the actuator is actually in partnership with a venture capital fund. So that's where the funding has come through. But then there's also personal funding that we've contributed to the startup as we have begun. So at this early stage, that's kind of the only investment that we've had. And then as we progress and hit some milestones along the way and cash starts to run thin, which does happen quite quickly, we'll start to seek other avenues for investment, whether that be through angel investors or other VC funds, or even just a lot of grant work, which is something that Mariam's been working heavily on.
You're causing flashbacks.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. Well, we'll move on so no more flashbacks. So back to the sort of general part of it. What's the most difficult thing you guys have found through this process?
All right, guys, heart to heart.
You can talk about the good things too. So maybe the most difficult and the best thing you've learned.
I think one of the things about difficulty, right, is that 1 out of every 10 days in a startup is tough, right? And that's when you're on a good run. And technically we're on a good run right now. So it's one of those things where you really quickly learn that it's tough, but you've got teammates that are ultimately with you, supporting you, and we're all backing each other up. And if we climb into a hole, we know that the other two can take us out of it, essentially. And I think the most difficult things for me, I think there's only 2, but I'll share one of them, which is always the fear of what's going to happen next, right? Because the thing about a startup is that you don't know where the next bunch of money, where the next investor is coming from, where the next grant fund is coming from. And so you're shooting your shots with no real guarantee. At least with with most things in life, you're sitting down, you're doing the work, and you expect that once you do the work, you'll get something out of it. And we are getting something out of it. But when it comes to the funding the startup, that for me has been a pretty interesting journey. But the thing that I do know from my mentors and from looking at other startups is that at least I can be reassured that it gets better the more you survive, essentially. So if you make it past a seed round, I mean, all of a sudden you have experience at raising $1 million. So what's another couple of billion, right? And then, so I think for me that was quite tough. But the good thing about tough is, and a lot of people really underrate this when it comes to, again, just the whole start space, is tough usually means that you're going to get stronger. And that has definitely been the case for us as well. When things get really, really tough and we get really, really pushed, that's when we start really evaluating our priorities. And that's where, time and time again, I think all of us have learned, surprisingly, that we can excel in situations we didn't think that we were even qualified to be a part of. So, yeah, that's my happy message.
Kenneth?
Yeah. I think for me, the most difficult thing, because as a designer, you're very closely tied to the problem and the solution. And I think very early on, it was very difficult to let go. You always have the idea that like, oh, your very first solution is the solution, right? Like there's like this halo around it that like it's definitely going to work out and everything. And as you go along, you learn more insights, you get more feedback, and then you realize, oh, that maybe this other thing might work a little bit better than the other, and you get that really difficult feeling of like realization that you need to let go of your initial idea so that you can let it like grow and progress and get better. So I think that was a very difficult thing for me at the start, and now I'm realizing that like if you hold on to your idea, your design in a very loose grip, you let it grow instead of like just fixing it against like your own like rigid cage of thought kind of thing.
Yeah. For me, I think for me has been, coming sometimes to terms with, with the role and like the extent of it. I think going back to that point of that Marianne mentioned in terms of like, very much not being probably qualified for the role. But I think, it's also knowing that, there'll always be people out there that, knowing more than you, but at one stage the way where you were before, like where you are now. And, really understanding that, in fact, it is part of the journey and part of the process that, obviously you don't know anything, and that's like, don't know everything, but like, that's okay. And that, you will learn along the process. And I think, again, that's where the strength of the team comes in. If we are struggling with something personally, I think we are really good at picking each other up, and helping along the process. And I think, again, build on each other's, strengths and weaknesses to, have kind of a united strong front. So I think for me that's kind of been like the toughest things. I think that imposter syndrome that we do face, and when we speak to a lot of co-founders, they go through it as well, and it's just understanding that's completely normal. It's part of the process, but yeah, just continuously chipping away at it, and continuing to work for what you believe in.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you guys for going through all that. We've just got the last couple of questions now, so if anyone has more questions, please put them in the chat, and if not, I'm sure these guys will be around to talk on the just after their presentation. So to finish off, we'd just like a bit of advice. What would be your advice to students wanting to get into MedTech? And if there's anything that you've learned along the way that you do differently, we'd like to hear about that as well.
Yep. Advice. I think just go for it. I mean, get started. It is daunting, knowing whether the thing that you're working on is the right one, or whether you're going in the right direction. But I think, especially from a student point of view, I couldn't, like, reflecting. I'm extremely happy and grateful that I got involved with MYMI when I did, and with Toucan along the way as well. It's helped immensely at a personal level in terms of growth, and to where I am now. And I think what you learn about yourself, and I think all the other skills that they bring, like, you pick up along the way, it's immense. So I think it's just a matter of really having a good hot go at it, because ultimately, I don't think there's anything to lose, to be honest. If it doesn't work out, that's okay, but you learn so much from it along the way that you can apply to the next project or whatever it is that you're working on. So I think that would be my advice.
Just go for it.
Yep.
Kenneth, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Santi just said. I guess along the same lines, just go for it. And I guess if I could tell myself, speak to myself like 6 months ago or a year ago, I think a big thing would be to reassure myself that it's okay to not know, and that I should. It's a bit weird to say, but I should really care a bit more. It's not just your own role that you need to focus on, but ultimately all these things in the startup space, you end up learning a lot about all the other parts of it, like hearing about what Zanti's doing in like regs and reimbursements and legal and market and business strategy. It sounds so like foreign from like, well, I'm just gonna develop the product. But when you go into it, you realize that all of it's all linked. And I guess the advice would be to be open to explore and be open to explore all the different kinds of pathways that you need to learn, because ultimately all of that like links together, and it's actually really exciting. And yeah, I just never realized how big that was until now.
Exactly, Eric, because like good design isn't born in a vacuum. And I think we've all learned that, like, because I think when I first came into it, I was so like locked into, I just want to design this and get it over with. But actually, if you look at all the vast network it's touching, you realize that actually you need to like consider every single player in this game, and how and what do you have to say to them. And actually, I would share the exact same advice as Santi and Kenneth, but I'm going to say it's through a Merriam filtered lens, which is you want to, like most people, I think, want to do something so incredible, right, that it makes the rest of their life look like an apostrophe or a background like footnote. That's the kind of thing that I think, at least from what I've seen of like the startup space, the people that it attracts, that's the sort of goal they want. And I think a lot of people dream big in the sciences. And what better time than now, right? Because you're only going to get older, you're only going to get more responsibilities, and you're only going to get you're only just going to get more like jobs and offers and all these things. So like, why not now?
Easy. So advice to everyone going forward, just take the leap of faith, because there are a lot of people out there ready to support and catch you. That's the main message that I see as the takeaway. But there's a couple of questions you didn't quite get to, but they will be sticking around afterwards to talk to you guys on that table, so you'll be able to ask your questions there. Thank you so much to Toucan Medical for joining us today. Good to see you guys, and we look forward to seeing what's happening in your future.
Awesome catching up, Laura. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Good seeing you again, guys.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for that fantastic panel talk. Thanks for Miriam, Santi, and Kenneth for coming along, and huge thanks to Laura for facilitating that discussion. So the final presentation for this session will be from Rachel. She is the project lead for Project Teddy Bear, which is another one of our Monash, one of our MYMI projects. So yeah, Rachel, whenever you're ready, I'll pass it on to you.
Thanks, Zaya. I'll just share my presentation. Can everyone see that? Can everyone hear me? Hold on. Yep, all good? Okay, cool. Alright, I'll get started then. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Rachel, and I'm the project lead of Project Teddy Bear, which is a project that seeks to make multiple sclerosis more understandable to young children. So Project Teddy Bear was initiated following MedTech in May of 2019, and that was to tackle some of the issues faced by those who experience multiple sclerosis, also known as MS. Through discussion with our co-designer, Danielle, who experiences MS, we were made aware that one of the challenges that she faced was explaining her symptoms to her children. This was where our mission originated. The specific goals we hope to achieve are alleviating the temporal and emotional burden that is experienced by parents with MS when explaining their disease symptoms to their children, removing the stress and confusion that the child experiences when they do not understand why their parent is experiencing a certain symptom, particularly at the start of the diagnosis, and also to increase awareness and empathy of children towards their parent with MS more generally. After exploring existing solutions, we noticed that their main shortfalls was breaking down a complex disease into understandable bite-sized pieces for young children, and ensuring that the child retains their understanding and learnings. Another crucial aspect for us to consider in the solution was affordability, in order to ensure accessibility for as many demographics as possible. Thus, these became important considerations in the design of our solution. To alleviate these issues, Project Teddy Bear seeks to create a fun, educational app that teaches children of parents with multiple sclerosis about MS symptoms. This will be directed towards primary school-aged children. Our solution meets gaps in alternative solutions, as it will be interactive by asking questions to link the scenarios to the parent situation, and it will test the child's ability to respond and remember learnings acquired through gameplay. It is designed so that the child will enjoy the game and want to come back to it, thus reinforcing and enhancing their understanding. It will provide a holistic understanding of the disease symptoms, as learnings can be spread over a long period of time, thus allowing for greater variety of disease symptoms to be explored. It will also be presented in a simple and understandable fashion for primary school-aged children, omitting technical jargon. And finally, it will be a free application, utilizing predominantly advertising revenue, thereby increasing accessibility of the product. The vision of the game is an island adventure style of game, where the user would have the opportunity to explore the island at their own leisure and complete mini-games and missions that teach them about multiple sclerosis. I'll now run you through an example of what the gameplay might look like. I'll just give a quick acknowledgement that some of the images shown are not my own and are modelled off other games. When the child enters the game, they will have the opportunity to explore the island or sign up for a mission. Once accepting the mission, the child will be alerted to the location of the mission, where they will find themselves faced with a scenario that closely mirrors a situation or symptom that someone with multiple sclerosis may experience. In this case, it's heat sensitivity. The child will then need to use their available tools and supplies to figure out how they can help ease the symptoms. At the completion of the scenario, the child will be prompted to compare the scenario to the symptoms that their parent experiences. In doing so, we hope to familiarize the child with some of these symptoms and teach them how they could respond appropriately. Our team is currently in the identify stage, knuckling down into the core of the problem and determining how we can optimize our solution. We have conducted research on the experiences of those with MS and are exploring external factors that will affect the delivery of our solution. Through our connections, we have tested 2 different game styles with several groups of primary school-aged children during the validator program. From this, we have attained user feedback which has been used to inform game decisions. Subsequently, the major change made was converting the game from an educational module-style game to an island adventure-style game, which we are currently envisioning. We believe that this will allow the child to perceive the application as more of a game than as an educational tool. Our 5-year vision into the future is that the app will be fully functioning, be in use by many households across Australia, and have implemented several updates based on user feedback. This would include bringing the app into use not only in households where there is a parent with MS, but also into households where no person experiences MS. And further, we would also like to bring it into educational institutions. Further into the future, we hope to add online functionality to the game, giving users the ability to interact with friends and complete scenarios in groups. We would also be keen to see the game expand to other scenarios to increase disability awareness more broadly. And there are countless more possibilities of how the project could scale. For example, by becoming a staple in educational facilities, being made available across multiple platforms, it could be made into a video game, or it could be made available in multiple languages. We're striving to finish our solution profile and market analysis by the end of the year before we begin the invention stage. In 2021, we hope to apply for an accelerator program, in particular MedTech Actuator or the Generators Accelerator, to gather early stage funding to take us into the implementation stage. This could involve workshops, mentoring with industry experts, iterating on and commercializing our product over a period of weeks or months. I'm also excited to announce that we now have some new team members with which will help us accelerate the project progress into the future. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about Project Teddy Bear. I invite you to reach out if you have any questions or would like to connect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation, Rachel. It looks like Project Teddy Bear is definitely doing some really fantastic things. And so at the moment, there's no questions, but we really do encourage all of the attendees to reach out to Rachel, to Eliza, and to the team at Toucan, have a chat with them in the social lounge, and ask them a couple of questions about the things that they've been getting up to. So that concludes the end of our third session. We hope that you enjoyed this one. We're just going to go now into a quick break, and then we'll meet you back here for session 4. So we'll see you guys later. And yeah, feel free to come and chat with everyone in the social lounge